Newfoundland and Labrador uːfənn registered trademark ʻlæbrədɔr unregistered trademark French, Terre-Neuve-et-Labrador, is the easternmost province of Canada. Situated in the country's Atlantic region, it incorporates the island of Newfoundland and mainland Labrador to the northwest, with a combined area of 405,212 square kilometers. In 2013, the province's population was estimated at 526,702. Approximately 92% of the province's population lives on the island of Newfoundland, of which more than half live on the Avalon Peninsula. The province is Canada's most linguistically homogenous, with 97.6% of residents reporting English as their mother tongue in the 2006 census. Historically, Newfoundland was also home to unique varieties of French and Irish, as well as the now extinct Beothuk language. In Labrador, local dialects of Innu-aimun and Inuktitut are also spoken. Newfoundland and Labrador's capital and largest city, St. John's, is Canada's 20th largest census metropolitan area, and is home to almost 40% of the province's population. St. John's is the seat of government, home to the House of Assembly of Newfoundland and Labrador and the highest court in the jurisdiction, the Newfoundland and Labrador Court of Appeal. A former colony and dominion of the United Kingdom, Newfoundland and Labrador became the 10th province to enter the Canadian Confederation on March 31, 1949, as Newfoundland. On December 6, 2001, an amendment was made to the Constitution of Canada to change the province's official name to Newfoundland and Labrador. In day-to-day conversation, however, Canadians generally still refer to the province itself as Newfoundland and to the region on the Canadian mainland as Labrador. Etymology: the name Newfoundland is derived from English as Newfoundland. The origin of Labrador is credited to João Fernandes Lavrador, the Portuguese navigator who explored the region. Geography: Newfoundland and Labrador is the most easterly province in Canada, and is located on the northeastern corner of North America. The Strait of Belle Isle separates the province into two geographical divisions, Labrador, which is a large landmass connected to mainland Canada, and Newfoundland, which is an island in the Atlantic Ocean. The province also includes over 7,000 tiny islands. Newfoundland is roughly triangular, with each side being approximately 400 km, and has an area of 108,860 km2. Newfoundland and its associated small islands have a total area of 111,390 km2. Newfoundland extends between latitudes 46°36' and 51°38' Labrador is an irregular shape. The western part of its border with Quebec is the drainage divider, the Labrador Peninsula. Lands drained by rivers that flow into the Atlantic Ocean are part of Labrador, the rest belong to Quebec. Labrador's extreme northern tip, at 68°22' shares a short border with Nunavut. Labrador's area is 294,330 km2. Together, Newfoundland and Labrador make up 4.06% of Canada's area. Labrador is the easternmost part of the Canadian Shield, a vast area of ancient metamorphic rock comprising much of northeastern North America. Colliding tectonic plates have shaped much of the geology of Newfoundland. Gros Morne National Park has a reputation as an outstanding example of tectonics at work, and as such has been designated a World Heritage Site. The Long Range Mountains on Newfoundland's west coast are the northeasternmost extension of the Appalachian Mountains. The north-south extent of the province, prevalent westerly winds, cold ocean currents and local factors such as mountains and coastline combine to create the various climates of the province. Northern Labrador is classified as a polar tundra climate, southern Labrador has a subarctic climate while most of Newfoundland would be humid continental climate, DFB. Cool summer subtype. Climate: Newfoundland and Labrador is home to a variety of climates and weather. One of the main reasons for this diversity is the geography of the province. The island portion of the province spans 5 degrees of latitude, which is comparable to that of the Great Lakes. The province has been divided into 6 climate types, but in broader terms Newfoundland is a cool summer subtype of a humid continental climate, which is greatly influenced by the sea since no part of the island is more than 100 km from the ocean. Northern Labrador is classified as a polar tundra climate, southern Labrador has a subarctic climate. Monthly average temperatures, rainfall and snowfall for 4 communities are shown in the attached graphs. St. John's represents the east coast, Gander the interior of the island, Corner Brook the west coast of the island and Wabash the interior of Labrador. The detailed information for 73 communities in the province is available from a government website. The data used in making the graphs is the average taken over 30 years. Error bars on the temperature graph indicate the range of daytime highs and nighttime lows. Snowfall is the total amount that fell during the month, not the amount accumulated on the ground. This distinction is particularly important for St. John's where a heavy snowfall can be followed by rain so that no snow remains on the ground. Surface water temperatures on the Atlantic side reach a summer average of 12 degrees Celsius inshore and 9 degrees Celsius offshore to winter lows of a 1 degrees Celsius inshore and 2 degrees Celsius offshore. Sea temperatures on the west coast are warmer than Atlantic side by 1 to 3 degrees Celsius. The sea keeps winter temperatures slightly higher and summer temperatures a little lower on the coast than at places inland. The maritime climate produces more variable weather, ample precipitation in a variety of forms, greater humidity, lower visibility, more clouds, less sunshine, and higher winds than a continental climate. History. Pre-colonization. Human habitation in Newfoundland and Labrador can be traced back about 9,000 years. The maritime archaic peoples were groups of archaic cultures of sea mammal hunters in the subarctic. They prospered from approximately 7000 BC to 1500 BC along the Atlantic coast of North America. Their settlements included longhouses and boat-top temporary or seasonal houses. They engaged in long-distance trade, using as currency white chert, a rock quarried from northern Labrador to Maine. The southern branch of these people was established on the North Peninsula of Newfoundland by 5,000 years ago. Maritime Archaic period is best known from a mortuary site in Newfoundland at Port Orchouax. The Maritime Archaic peoples were gradually displaced by people of the Dorset culture who also occupied Port Orchouax. The number of their sites discovered on Newfoundland indicate they may have been the most numerous group of Aboriginal people to live there. They thrived from about 2000 BC to 1200 years ago. Many of their sites were located on exposed headlands and outer islands. They were more oriented to the sea than earlier peoples, and had developed sleds and boats similar to kayaks. They could burn seal blubber and soapstone lamps. Many of these sites, such as Port Orchouax, recently excavated by memorial archaeologist, Priscilla Renouf, are quite large and show evidence of a long-term commitment to place. Renouf has excavated huge amounts of harp seal bones at Port Orchouax, indicating that this place was a prime location for the hunting of these animals. The Dorset culture were highly adapted to living in a very cold climate, and much of their food came from hunting sea mammals through holes in the ice. The massive decline in sea ice which the medieval warm period produced would have had a devastating impact upon their way of life. The appearance of the Beothuk culture is believed the most recent cultural manifestation of peoples who first migrated from Labrador to Newfoundland around 1 AD. The Inuit, found mostly in Labrador, are the descendants of what anthropologists call the Thule culture, who emerged from western Alaska around 1000 AD and spread eastwards across the high Arctic, reaching Labrador around 1300 or 1500. Researchers believe that the Dorset culture lacked the dogs, larger weapons and other technologies that gave the expanding Inuit society an advantage. With the passage of time, groups started to focus on resources available to them locally. The inhabitants eventually organized themselves into small bands of a few families, grouped into larger tribes and chieftainships. The Innu are the inhabitants of an area they refer to as Nitassinan, which comprises most of what is now referred to as northeastern Quebec and Labrador. Their subsistence activities were historically centered on hunting and trapping caribou, deer and small game. Coastal clans also practiced agriculture, fished, and managed maple syrup bush. The Innu engaged in tribal warfare along the coast of Labrador with the Inuit groups that had significant populations. The Mark of southern Newfoundland spent most of their time on the shores harvesting seafood. During the winter they would move inland to the woods to hunt. Over time, the Mi'kmaq and Innu divided their lands into traditional districts. Each district was independently governed and had a district chief and a council. The council members were brown chiefs, elders, and other worthy community leaders. In addition to the district councils, the Mi'kmaq tribes also had a Grand Council or Santa Copyright Mo'kub'tmi, which according to oral tradition was formed before 1600. European contact. The oldest confirmed accounts of European contact date from 1,000 years ago as described in the Viking Icelandic sagas. Around the year 1001, the sagas refer to Leif Erikson landing in 3 places to the west, the first 2 being Heliland and Markland. Leif's third landing was at a place he called Vinland. Archaeological evidence of a Norse settlement was found in Land's O Meadows, Newfoundland, which was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1978. There are several other unconfirmed accounts of European discovery and exploration. One tale by men from the Channel Islands being blown off course in the late 15th century into a strange land full of fish, and another from Portuguese maps that depict the Terra do Bacalhau, or land of codfish, west of the Azores. The earliest, though, is the Voyage of St. Brendan, the fantastical account of an Irish monk who made a sea voyage in the early 6th century. While the story itself became a part of myth and legend, some historians believe it is based on fact. In 1496 John Cabot obtained a charter from English King Henry VII to sail to all parts, countries and seas of the east, the west and of the north, under a banner and ensign and to set up Albana on any Newfoundland, and on June 24, 1497 landed in Cape Bonavista. Historians disagree on whether Cabot landed in Nova Scotia in 1497 or in Newfoundland, or possibly Maine, if he landed at all, but Bonavista is recognized by the governments of Canada and the United Kingdom as being Cabot's official landing place. In 1499 and 1500, Portuguese mariners João Paulo Fernandes Lavrador and Paru de Barcelos explored and mapped the coast, the former's name appearing as Labrador on topographical maps of the period. Based on the Treaty of Tordesillas, the Portuguese crown claimed it had territorial rights in the area visited by John Cabot in 1497 and 1498. Subsequently, in 1501 and 1502 the Corte-Real brothers explored Newfoundland and Labrador, claiming them as part of the Portuguese Empire. In 1506, King Manuel I of Portugal created taxes for the cod fisheries in Newfoundland waters. João Paulo Alvares Fagundes and Paru de Barcelos established seasonal fishing outposts in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia around 1521, and older Portuguese settlements may have existed. Sir Humphrey Gilbert, provided with letters patent from Queen Elizabeth I, landed in St. John's in August 1583, and formally took possession of the island. Colony of Newfoundland. In 1583 Newfoundland became England's first possession in North America and one of the earliest permanent English colonies in the New World when it was claimed by Sir Humphrey Gilbert for Queen Elizabeth. Though English fishing boats had visited Newfoundland continuously since Cabot's second voyage in 1498 and seasonal fishing camps had existed for a century prior, similar was true of Basque, French, and Portuguese ships and camps. Thus pressure to secure the island from foreign control led to the appointment of proprietary governors to establish colonial settlements on the island from 1610 to 1728. John Guy was governor of the first settlement at Cuppers Cove. Other settlements were Bristol's Hope, Renews, New Cambriel, South Falkland and Avalon, which became a province in 1623. The first governor given jurisdiction over all of Newfoundland was Sir David Kirk in 1638. Explorers soon realized that the waters around Newfoundland had the best fishing in the North Atlantic. By 1620, 300 fishing boats worked the Grand Bank, employing some 10,000 sailors. Many continuing to come from Basque Country, Normandy, or Brittany. they dried and salted the cod on the coast and sold it to Spain and Portugal. Heavy investment by Sir George Calvert, 1st Baron Baltimore, in the 1620s in wharves, warehouses, and fishing stations failed to pay off. French raids hurt the business, and the weather was terrible, so he redirected his attention to his other colony in Maryland. After Calvert left, small-scale entrepreneurs such as Sir David Kirk made good use of the facilities. Kirk became the first governor in 1639. A triangular trade with New England, the West Indies, and Europe gave Newfoundland an important economic role. By the 1670s there were 1,700 permanent residents and another 4,500 in the summer months. Basque fishermen, who had been fishing cod shoals off Newfoundland's coasts since the beginning of the 16th century, founded Plaisance, a haven which started to be also used by French fishermen. In 1655, France appointed a governor in Plaisance, thus starting a formal French colonization period of Newfoundland as well as a period of periodic war and unrest between England and France. The Mi'kmaq, as allies with the French, were amenable to limited French settlement in their midst and fought with them against the English. English attacks on Placentia provoked retaliation by New France explorer Pierre Le Moyne d'Iberville, who during King William's War in the 1690s destroyed nearly every English settlement on the island. The entire population of the English colony was either killed, captured for ransom, or sentenced to expulsion to England, with the exception of those who withstood the attack at Carbonear Island and those in the then remote Bona Vista. After France lost political control of the area after the siege of Port Royal in 1710, the Mi'kmaq engaged in warfare with the British throughout Dummer's War, King George's War, Father Le Loutre's War and the French and Indian War. The French colonization period lasted until the Treaty of Utrecht, in 1713, which ended the War of the Spanish Succession and France ceded its claims to Newfoundland to the British and to the French possessions in Acadia. Afterward, under the supervision of the last French governor, the French population of Plaisance moved to Île Royale, part of Acadia which remained then under French control. In the Treaty of Utrecht, France had acknowledged British ownership of the island. However, in the 7 Years' War, control of Newfoundland once again became a major source of conflict between Britain, France and Spain, who all pressed for a share in the valuable fishery there. Britain's victories around the globe led William Pitt to insist that nobody other than Britain should have access to Newfoundland. The Battle of Signal Hill was fought in Newfoundland in 1762, when a French force landed and tried to occupy the island, only to be repulsed by the British. From 1763 to 1767 James Cook made a detailed survey of the coasts of Newfoundland and southern Labrador, while he was commander of the HMS Grenville. The following year, 1768, Cook began his first circumnavigation of the world. In 1796 a Franco-Spanish expedition again succeeded in raiding the coasts of Newfoundland and Labrador, destroying many of the settlements. By the Treaty of Utrecht, French fishermen were given the right to land and cure fish on the French shore on the western coast. They had a permanent base on nearby St. Pierre and Miquelon Islands. The French gave up their rights in 1904. In 1783, the British signed the Treaty of Paris with the United States that gave American fishermen similar rights along the coast. These rights were reaffirmed by treaties in 1818, 1854 and 1871 and confirmed by arbitration in 1910. In 1854 the British government established Newfoundland's responsible government. In 1855, Philip Francis Little, a native of Prince Edward Island, won a parliamentary majority over Sir Hugh Hoyles and the Conservatives. Little formed the first administration from 1855 to 1858. Newfoundland rejected confederation with Canada in the 1869 general election. Prime Minister of Canada Sir John Thomson came very close to negotiating Newfoundland's entry into Confederation in 1892. Dominion of Newfoundland. Newfoundland remained a colony until acquiring Dominion status in 1907. A Dominion constituted a self-governing state of the British Empire or British Commonwealth, and the Dominion of Newfoundland was relatively autonomous from British rule. Newfoundland's own regiment, the 1st Newfoundland Regiment, fought in the First World War. On July 1, 1916, the German army wiped out nearly the entire regiment at Beaumont-Hamel on the first day on the Somme. The regiment went on to serve with distinction in several subsequent battles, earning the prefix Royal. Despite people's pride in the accomplishments of the regiment, the Dominion's war debt due to the regiment and the cost of maintaining a trans-island railway led to increased and ultimately unsustainable government debt in the post-war era. It was during this period of Dominion status that the Labrador mainland and the island of Newfoundland merged into a single political entity. Since the early 1800s, Newfoundland and Quebec had been in a border dispute over the Labrador region. In 1927, however, the British government ruled that the area known as modern-day Labrador was to be considered part of the Dominion of Newfoundland. Commission of Government and Confederation with Canada, due to Newfoundland's high debt load, arising from World War I and construction of the Newfoundland Railroad, and decreasing revenue, due to the collapse of fish prices, the Newfoundland legislature voted itself out of existence in 1933, in exchange for loan guarantees by the Crown and a promise it would be re-established. On February 16, 1934, the Commission of Government was sworn in, ending 79 years of responsible government. The commission consisted of 7 persons appointed by the British government. For 15 years no elections took place, and no legislature was convened. When prosperity returned with World War II, agitation began to end the commission, and reinstate responsible government. But, the British government created the National Convention in 1946, reflecting efforts in self-determination among European nationalities that followed WWII. The convention, made of representatives from throughout the country, was formally tasked to advise on the future of Newfoundland. Chaired by Judge Cyril J. Fox, it consisted of 45 elected members from across the province. Several motions were made by Joey Smallwood to examine joining Canada by sending a delegation to Ottawa. The first motion was defeated, although the convention later decided to send delegations to both London and Ottawa to explore alternatives. In January 1948, the National Convention voted against putting Confederation onto the referendum 29-16. But, this vote was overruled by the British, which controlled the National Convention and the subsequent referendum. Those who supported Confederation were extremely disappointed with the recommendations of the National Convention and organized a petition which more than 50,000 Newfoundlanders signed demanding that Confederation with Canada be placed before the people in the upcoming referendum. As most historians agree, the British government keenly wanted Confederation on the ballot and they made sure that it was. 3 main factions actively campaigned during the lead-up to the referendums. Smallwood led the Confederate Association, advocating union with the Canadian Confederation. They campaigned through a newspaper known as the Confederate. The Responsible Government League, led by Peter Cashin, advocated an independent Newfoundland with a return to responsible government. Their newspaper was the Independent. A third, smaller Economic Union Party, led by Chesley Crosby, advocated closer economic ties with the United States. The EUP failed to gain much attention, and merged with the RGL after the first referendum. The first referendum took place on June 3, 1948. 44.5% of people voted for responsible government, 41.1% voted for Confederation with Canada, while 14.3% voted for Commission of Government. Since none of the choices had gained over 50%, a second referendum with only the 2 more popular choices was held on July 22, 1948. The official outcome of that referendum was 52.3% for Confederation with Canada and 47.7% for responsible government. After the referendum, a 7-man delegation was picked by the British governor to negotiate Canada's offer on behalf of Newfoundland. After 6 of the 7-man delegation signed, the British government passed the British North America Act, 1949 through Parliament. Newfoundland officially joined Canada at midnight, March 31, 1949. As documents in British and Canadian archives came available in the 1980s, it became clear that both Canada and the United Kingdom wanted Newfoundland to join Canada. Some have charged that it was a conspiracy to maneuver Newfoundland into Confederation, in exchange for forgiveness of Britain's war debt and for other considerations, but most historians who have examined the government documents have concluded that while Britain engineered the inclusion of Confederation in the referendum, Newfoundlanders made the final decision themselves, although it was a close vote. Subsequent to the referendum, there has been hearsay that the referendum was narrowly won by the responsible government side, but the result was fixed by the British governor. The governor ordered the ballots from the referendum to be burned shortly afterward. Some have argued that independent oversight of the vote tallying was lacking, but the process was supervised by respected Corner Brook magistrate Nehemiah Short, who has also overseen elections to the National Convention. Provincial flag. Newfoundland and Labrador's present provincial flag, designed by Newfoundland artist Christopher Pratt, was officially adopted by the legislature on May 28, 1980, and first flown on Discovery Day that year. Labrador has its own unofficial flag, created in 1973 by Mike Martin, former member of the Legislative Assembly for Labrador South. The blue is meant to represent the sea, the white represents snow and ice, the red represents the efforts and struggles of the people, and the gold represents the confidence of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. The blue triangles are a tribute to the Union flag, and represent the British heritage of the province. The two red triangles represent Labrador and the island. The golden arrow is a Union Jack, placed on the flag as a reminder that Newfoundland was once owned by Britain. In Pratt's words, the Union Jack points towards a brighter future. The pink, white and green is a flag of 19th-century origins that enjoyed popularity in portions of the island in the late 19th century. It was flown on some vessels into the 20th century. It was never adopted by the Newfoundland government. A 1976 article reported that the tricolour flag was created in 1843 by then Roman Catholic Bishop of Newfoundland, Michael Anthony Fleming. The colours were intended to represent the symbolic union of Newfoundland's historically dominant ethnic religious groups, English, Scottish and Irish. Though popular, there is no historical evidence to support this legend. Recent scholarship suggests that the flag was first used in the 1870s or later by the Roman Catholic Star of the Sea Fishermen's Association. It resembled the unofficial flag of Ireland. The tricolour flag remained relatively unknown outside of St. John's and the Avalon Peninsula until the growth of the tourist industry since the late 20th century. It has been used as an emblem on items in gift shops in St. John's and other towns. Some tourists assume it is the Irish flag. The pink, white and green has been adopted by some residents as a symbol of ties with Irish heritage and as a political statement. Many of the province's Protestants, who make up approximately 60% of the province's total population, consider it a Catholic flag. Similarly, many of the province's Catholics, approximately 37% of the total population, think that the current provincial flag does not satisfactorily represent them. But, a government-sponsored poll in 2005 revealed that 75% of Newfoundlanders rejected adoption of the tricolour flag as the province's official flag. Demographics. Newfoundland and Labrador has a population of 514,536, more than half of whom live on the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland, site of the capital and historical early settlement. Since 2006, the population of the province has started to increase for the first time since the early 1990s. In the 2006 census, the population of the province decreased by 1.5% compared to 2001, and stood at 505,469. But, by the 2011 census, the population had risen by 1.8%. The largest single religious denomination by number of adherents according to the 2001 census was the Roman Catholic Church, at 36.9% of the province's population. The major Protestant denominations make up 59.7% of the population, with the largest group being the Anglican Church of Canada at 26.1% of the total population, the United Church of Canada at 17.0%, and the Salvation Army at 7.9%, with other Protestant denominations in much smaller numbers. The Pentecostal churches made up 6.7% of the population with 33,840 members. Non-Christians made up only 2.7% of the total population, with the majority of those respondents indicating no religion. According to the 2001 Canadian census, the largest ethnic group in Newfoundland and Labrador is English, followed by Irish, Scottish, French, and First Nations. While half of all respondents also identified their ethnicity as Canadian, 38% report their ethnicity as Newfoundlander in a 2003 Statistics Canada Ethnic Diversity Survey. Economy: all currency is in Canadian dollars. For many years, Newfoundland and Labrador had experienced a depressed economy. Following the collapse of the cod fishery during the early 1990s, the province suffered record unemployment rates and the population decreased by roughly 60,000. Due to a major energy and resources boom, the provincial economy has had a major turnaround since the turn of the 21st century. Unemployment rates decreased, the population stabilized and had moderate growth. The province has gained record surpluses, which has rid it of his status as a have-not province. Economic growth, gross domestic product, exports and employment resumed in 2010, after suffering the impacts of the late 2000s recession. Total capital investment in the province grew to $6.2 billion, an increase of 23.0% compared to 2009. GDP reached $28.1 billion, compared to $25 billion in 2009. Service industries accounted for the largest share of GDP, especially financial services, healthcare and public administration. Other significant industries are mining, oil production and manufacturing. The total workforce in 2010 was 263,800 people. Per capita GDP in 2008 was $61,763, higher than the national average and third only to Alberta and Saskatchewan out of Canadian provinces. Mines in Labrador, the iron ore mine at Wabash Labrador City, and the nickel mine in Voisey's Bay produced a total of $3.3 billion worth of ore in 2010. A mine at Duck Pond south of the now-closed mine at Buchan's, started producing copper, zinc, silver and gold in 2007, and prospecting for new ore bodies continues. Mining accounted for 3.5% of the provincial GDP in 2006. The province produces 55% of Canada's total iron ore. Quarries producing dimension stones such as slate and granite, account for less than $10 a million worth of material per year. Oil production from offshore oil platforms on the Hibernia, White Rose and Terre-Neuve oil fields on the Grand Banks was of 110 million barrels, which contributed to more than 15% of the province's GDP in 2006. Total production from the Hibernia field from 1997 to 2006 was 733 million barrels with an estimated value of $36 a billion. This will increase with the inclusion of the latest project, Hebron. Remaining reserves are estimated at almost 2 billion barrels as of December 31, 2006. Exploration for new reserves is ongoing. On June 16, 2009, Provincial Premier Danny Williams announced a tentative agreement to expand the Hibernia oil field. The government negotiated a 10% equity stake in the Hibernia South expansion, which will add an estimated $10 a billion to Newfoundland and Labrador's treasury. The fishing industry remains an important part of the provincial economy, employing roughly 20,000 and contributing over $440 a million to the GDP. The combined harvest of fish such as cod, haddock, halibut, herring and mackerel was 150,000 tons valued at about $130 a million in 2006. Shellfish, such as crab, shrimp and clams, accounted for 195,000 tons with a value of $316 a million in the same year. The value of products from the seal hunt was $55 a million. Aquaculture is a new industry for the province, which in 2006 produced over 10,000 tons of Atlantic salmon, mussels and steelhead trout worth over $50 a million. Newsprint is produced by one paper mill in Corner Brook with a capacity of 420,000 tons per year. The value of newsprint exports varies greatly from year to year, depending on the global market price. Lumber is produced by numerous mills in Newfoundland. Apart from seafood processing, paper manufacture and oil refining, manufacturing in the province consists of smaller industries producing food, brewing and other beverage production, and footwear. Agriculture in Newfoundland is limited to areas south of St. John's, Cormac, Woodale, areas near Musgravetown and in the Codroy Valley. Potatoes, rutabagas, turnips, carrots and cabbage are grown for local consumption. Poultry and eggs are also produced. Wild blueberries, partridge berries and baker apples are harvested commercially and used in jams and wine making. Dairy production is another huge part of the Newfoundland agriculture industry. Tourism is also a significant contributor to the province's economy. In 2006, nearly 500,000 non-resident tourists visited Newfoundland and Labrador, spending an estimated $366 a million. Tourism is most popular throughout the months of June near September, the warmest months of the year with the longest hours of daylight. Government and politics. Newfoundland and Labrador is governed by a parliamentary government within the construct of constitutional monarchy. The monarchy in Newfoundland and Labrador is the foundation of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The sovereign is Queen Elizabeth II, who also serves as head of state of 15 other Commonwealth countries, each of Canada's 9 other provinces, and the Canadian federal realm, and resides predominantly in the United Kingdom. As such, the Queen's representative, the Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador, carries out most of the royal duties in Newfoundland and Labrador. The direct participation of the royal and viceroyal figures in any of these areas of governance is limited. In practice, their use of the executive powers is directed by the Executive Council, a committee of ministers of the Crown responsible to the unicameral, elected House of Assembly and chosen and headed by the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, the head of government. To ensure the stability of government, the Lieutenant Governor will usually appoint as Premier the person who is usually the current leader of a political party that can obtain the confidence of a plurality in the House of Assembly. The leader of the party with the second most seats usually becomes the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition and is part of an adversarial parliamentary system intended to keep the government in check. Each of the 48 members of the House of Assembly is elected by simple plurality in an electoral district. General elections must be called by the Lieutenant Governor on the second Tuesday in October 4 years after the previous election, or may be called, on the advice of the Premier, should the government lose a confidence vote in the legislature. Traditionally, politics in the province have been dominated by both the Liberal Party and the Progressive Conservative Party. However, in the 2011 provincial election the New Democratic Party, which had only ever attained minor success, had a major breakthrough and placed second in the popular vote behind the Progressive Conservatives. Culture, music. Newfoundland and Labrador has a folk musical heritage based on the Irish, English and Scottish traditions that were brought to its shores centuries ago. Though similar in its Celtic influence to neighbouring Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador are more Irish than Scottish, and have more elements imported from English and French music than those provinces. Much of the region's music focuses on the strong seafaring tradition in the area, and includes sea shanties and other sailing songs. Some modern traditional musicians include Great Big Sea, the Ennis Sisters, Shannigannock, Sharecroppers, Ron Hines, and the Navigators. Sports. Newfoundland and Labrador has a somewhat different sports culture than the rest of Canada, owing in part to its long history separate from the rest of Canada and under British rule. Ice hockey, however, remains popular. The St. John's Ice Caps play professionally at the Mile 1 Centre in St. John's, and the Newfoundland Senior Hockey League has teams around the island. Since the departure of the St. John's Fog Devils in 2008, Newfoundland and Labrador is the only province in Canada to not have a team in the Canadian Hockey League. Association football and rugby union are both more popular in Newfoundland and Labrador than the rest of Canada in general. Soccer is hosted at King George V Park, a 10,000-seat stadium built as Newfoundland's national stadium during the time as an independent dominion. Swallows Rugby Park hosts the Swallows RFC and Rugby Union. Other sports facilities in Newfoundland and Labrador include Pepsi Centre, an indoor arena in Corner Brook. Shamrock Field, Canada's national Gaelic Games venue in St. John's. And St. Patrick's Park, a baseball park in St. John's. Gridiron football, be it either American or Canadian, is practically non-existent. It is the only Canadian province other than Prince Edward Island to have never hosted a Canadian Football League or Canadian inter-university sport game. Unlike Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador also lacks an amateur team. Transportation. Within the province, the Newfoundland and Labrador Department of Transportation and Works operates or sponsors 15 automobile, passenger, and freight ferry routes which connect various communities along the province's significant coastline. A regular passenger and car ferry service, lasting about 90 minutes, crosses the Strait of Belle Isle, connecting the province's island of Newfoundland with the region of Labrador on the mainland. The ferry MV Apollo travels from St. Barbe, Newfoundland on the Great Northern Peninsula to the port town of Blanc-Sablon, Quebec, located on the provincial border and beside the town of L'Anse Aux Clercs, Labrador. The MV Sir Robert Bond once provided seasonal ferry service between Louis-Bourty on the island and the towns of Cartwright and Happy Valley Goose Bay in Labrador, but has not ran since the completion of the Trans-Labrador Highway in 2010, allowing access from Blanc-Sablon, Quebec to major parts of Labrador. Several smaller ferries connect numerous other coastal towns and offshore island communities around the island of Newfoundland and up the Labrador coast as far north as Nain. Interprovincial ferry services are provided by Marine Atlantic, a federal crown corporation which operates auto-passenger ferries from North Sydney, Nova Scotia to the towns of Port aux Basques and Argentia on the southern coast of Newfoundland Island. The St. John's International Airport YYT and the Gander International Airport YQX are the only airports in the province that are part of the national airport system. The St. John's International Airport handles nearly 1,200,000 passengers a year, making it the busiest airport in the province and the 11th busiest airport in Canada. The airport is currently undergoing a major expansion of the terminal building which is scheduled to be complete in 2021. Provincial symbols. See also: Index of Newfoundland and Labrador related articles, List of mammals of Newfoundland Island, Nunavut, Dominion of Newfoundland, List of communities in Newfoundland and Labrador, Higher education in Newfoundland and Labrador, Newfoundland in fiction, Newfoundland English, Newfoundland Irish. References. Further reading. External links. Newfoundland and Labrador Travel Guide from Wikivoyage, Government of Newfoundland and Labrador Centre for Newfoundland Studies, Newfoundland and Labrador at DMOZ, Songs of Newfoundland and Labrador, Fisheries Heritage website, Official Tourism website, Newfoundland and Labrador's Web 2.0 Nature Atlas by Memorial University and Department of Wildlife, Newfoundland and Labrador's Provincial Register of Historic Places.